Hi all, AD here. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today I'm in deepest, darkest Surrey and I'm on Reigate Hill, and it's such a beautiful clear winter's day. It's bitterly cold. We've had some snow. As you can see, it was a little bit tricky walking up here, quite icy, but look at the views. Can you see on the horizon here? Yeah, you can see all of London. Don't get that many days where it's this crystal clear that you can see that far. Now, Reigate Hill, really interesting. It's got amazing panoramic views over the downs. So today's more of a jaunt, but it's got a really interesting story relating to a bomber that actually crashed in the Second World War. Really sad story. They were so close to home. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And also there is Reigate Fort that was built here in 1868, and it's one of, I believe, several forts that were built along the ridge to protect London from invasion. So let's go and have a look on this beautiful cold day. I've got to keep moving because it's so cold, and I've got to be very careful because I don't want to break my neck on the ice. So yeah, let's go. And as you can see, it's really icy up here, so I'm having to tread very carefully. So the first stop off we're going to do on today's little jaunt is to Reigate Fort. Now, this isn't a Roman or an Iron Age site, despite the name Reigate Fort. It is, in fact, a bit younger. It was only built in 1898, right at the tail end of Queen Victoria's reign. And if you want, you can pause here and have a little bit of a read of the information board there. So this was built as part of what was called the London Defence Scheme. So basically the British government was worried about invasion, especially from France, and so they set up this defensive line of installations, and it stretched for about 72 miles from the North Downs to Essex. And as we walk into the fort, you can see the original iron gates here. They're more like doors really, aren't they? And this place is now looked after by the National Trust, and they do have several open days throughout the year. So if you want to come in and have a look inside these little buildings, they're more like stores, then do check out their website for more information. The idea of this place was really simple. If an invasion had happened, this fort wouldn't have been about cannons and big battles. Instead, it was more of a mobilisation centre, a place where tools, supplies, ammunition, etc. could be held ready, and troops could quickly dig entrenchments to slow an advancing enemy on the way to London. And this was the tool store building. Again, pause it if you want to read it in a little bit more detail. But back in the day, this building was incredibly important. It was where all the entrenching gear would have been kept. The spades, pickaxes, saws, axes, anything really you would have needed to clear trees, dig trenches, lay out barbed wires, etc. And you can see it's still used for storage today. I mean, these were functional working military assets. They were designed for like rapid response, a kind of get ready and get set centre for defenders of the nation. And there's not just tools, there's evidence they stored other essentials here like tents, barbed wire, etc. to slow enemy movement, and they were always ready to go at a moment's notice. And this building in front of me is the magazine. Again, pause if you want to read a little bit more. Now, a magazine, I'm sure you probably already know this, is the military term for a place where ammunition was stored. And this place was built with two arched chambers set into the hillside where all the ammunition and explosives were kept. And you would have had everything in here from rifle cartridges to shells and fuses for nearby artillery. Sorry, I can't get the camera to quite focus properly there. But one cool thing about these magazines that you can see when the camera pans around and we walk up the top, that they were covered with earth. Now, this wasn't just leftover soil, this was deliberate. They used to cover munition storage like this, and it helped protect it from enemy shelling. And if the worst happened and a shell did land nearby, the earth would have absorbed much of the impact. This section we're heading over to now is called Casemates. And casemates are basically underground rooms built into the hillside. And at Reigate Fort, they served a few different purposes. First off, this was where soldiers could shelter, whether that was from the bad weather, like today, where we're frozen solid. In theory, they could have also sheltered from enemy fire. But being tucked into the chalk of the North Downs made them naturally strong and quite well insulated. Now, inside these spaces would have been pretty basic. I mean, they still are now. There's stone walls, arch ceilings, minimal light, and not really much in the way of comfort. So this wasn't anything luxurious at all. It was very, very functional. So soldiers stationed here might have used these rooms for sleeping, maybe storing equipment or preparing supplies. If the fort had ever been fully activated. And I imagine back in the day, these windows would have had glass in them. I mean, the interesting thing is that these casemates were never made or meant for long-term living. It was just supposed to be a mobilised centre, and it wasn't built to be a permanent barracks. And you can see how clever the design is. The thicker above would have acted as natural protection, and these curved arches would have helped spread any shock from explosions. And this was a common military engineering trick at the time. It's all very late Victorian military thinking, practical, efficient, and it was built just in case the worst did happen. And standing here now, it's kind of eerie, isn't it, to think that this whole place was built for a war that never came. I mean, obviously there was the First and Second World War, but they never progressed up the country, thank goodness. But these rooms were ready, stocked and waiting, but they were never truly put to the test. Instead, they've survived here for over a century, hidden in the hillside, while the world around them has moved on. The fort wasn't in use for very long. By about 1906, just 8 years after it had been built, the British government by then had a pretty serious naval force, and newer battleships like HMS Dreadnought made the threat of invasion seem a lot less likely. So by then the military started winding down its use of these defending outposts. Reigate Fort was decommissioned by 1906, and it was sold off not long afterwards. Eventually, though, people realised this place was historically interesting, so in 1972 it was designated a scheduled ancient monument, and it's protected today as part of Britain's military heritage. And today the National Trust looks after it, and there's loads of volunteers that help preserve it. So that's great for you and me, because we can come and visit it and go for a lovely walk as well while we're up here. And as we leave the fort, I mean, it's easy to understand why the location itself was very carefully chosen, because you're up here with great visibility across the South Downs, and being so high up meant you could see movement from a long way off, which is exactly what you wanted if you were trying to organise a defensive line. Now, this is really interesting. This is an old military war department boundary stone, and they were used to mark boundaries of land under military jurisdiction, like firing ranges, camps, etc. And that one says the War Department boundary is the northern edge of the Pilgrims Way. Now, while coming up upon here the memorial of the World War II plane crash. So this happened on the evening of the 19th of March 1945, and a US Army Air Forces B-17G Flying Fortress, a heavy bomber, and it was on its way back from a long mission over Germany and the Czech border. It was flying over this part of Surrey. Now, unfortunately, thick cloud and poor visibility forced the bomber out of its formation, and it was flying quite low when it came in over Rygate. Just before 5:40 p.m, the aircraft struck the side of Reigate Hill. It crashed into the trees and the hillside with the loss of all 9 crew on board. I mean, the eldest was only 25 years old. Tragic. They were members of the 384th Bombardment Group, returning to their base at Grafton Wood in Northamptonshire when the tragedy happens. And here you'll see a simple but powerful memorial made from 2 oak wing tips, and they were carved by local artist Roger Day, and they're positioned exactly where the wingspan would have been. So they're 103 feet apart, and they match the original flying fortress that came down here. And buried within this sculpture, believe it or not, are actual pieces of metal that were recovered from the wreckage, so they connect the memorial physically to those that were lost. It's a quiet spot now. Walkers pass by unaware, many of them, about the story behind it, but every year people gather here to remember these young airmen who never made it home. It's always a humbling reminder of the many often overlooked moments of history that have shaped our landscape. And we're just going to head through this gate over here, and there is cows up here sometimes, but they tend to just mind their own business because this path is part of the North Downs Way, so they're very used to people walking around. And it's mad to think, isn't it, that this ridge people have walked along for hundreds if not thousands of years. Now just over here, this is the Inglis Memorial. It's been here since 1909, and it's dedicated to Sir William Inglis, who was a general from the Napoleonic Wars. It's beautiful, isn't it? And he was mainly remembered for a moment in battle where he was really badly wounded, but he refused to leave, and he told his soldiers to carry on without him. So the monument's kind of about his stubbornness, bravery, and how he just got on with it, which actually feels quite fitting for a spot like this. And now you can see why people come up here. The views are just absolutely brilliant, and on a clear day like today you can see right across the Surrey countryside over the Weald, and as you saw at the beginning you could see all the way to London because the air was so clear. And it's one of those places where you just stop and take a second, and well, that's what I do anyway. I just find it really, really relaxing. And we're walking over here towards what I used to call the bomb crater. It's not actually a bomb crater, apparently it's natural. It's a natural landslip, but for many years I thought this had been a bomb crater. So there you go. It looks like one, I think so anyway. And the view's breathtaking. I'll never get tired of coming up here. I'm going to wrap the video up here now. I do hope you enjoyed today's little jaunt, and if you did, if you could please like and subscribe, that'd be amazing. It really helps my channel, and if you want to support the channel a bit more, there's a link to buy me a coffee down below. But even watching the video really means the world to me. So I shall see you for the next one.